Peter, we were discussing Mexico, and I had no idea that there were such large consumers of pop beverages. So you were going to finish your thought there on whether it was successful or not, this policy.
Sure, I just said it's a 1 peso per liter. I was a little confused there before. So yes, this 1 peso per liter tax has been hailed around the world as a very important sort of stab against obesity. And it certainly raised a lot of money for the Mexican government. But if you look at the underlying health measures, these things like the body mass index, or you look at obesity rates or morbid obesity rates, it has had zero effect. These figures have continued to go, they're continuing the same trajectory that they were rising on before the tax as after the tax. And so if you're bringing something in for a public health reason, if you say we need this because we need to make the population healthier, then you should be prepared to put it up against the evidence.
Right.
And here we are 7 years later, and there's been no impact on Mexican health in the measures that you would expect to see if a soda tax was actually slimming people down.
Now,
it's had zero effect.
Is that result unique to just Mexico, or has there been other academic research that speaks to these soda taxes and perhaps their ineffectiveness?
Well, Mexico has received a lot of attention, but if you look all over the world, the body mass index, which is a commonly used measure for whether people are getting heavier, more obese, continue to rise. A very slow, gradual trajectory that makes everyone very worried. And so we've seen this explosion of interest in soda taxes around the world, and we've seen no impact on BMI or obesity rates. Because people simply skirt around it. They've either decided that they like soda more than they dislike paying the tax, or they look for other things, maybe ice cream or chocolate bars, maybe things that aren't taxed to get their sweet fix. So that's the ultimate story, I think, with soda taxes is they're brought in with good intentions. It seems sort of logical at a very facile level. If we make these things more expensive, people will stop drinking them and they'll get thinner. But they don't get thinner.
But don't people just react against the government? I mean, the way I see it is, well, if people want to drink soda pop, I mean, I actually don't drink the stuff. We weren't raised with it, so I seldom will have any, maybe if I'm at a bar getting a cocktail or something. But, so it doesn't really impact me. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to consume that, why should I be penalized for my preferred beverage?
Well, that would be my opinion too, but there's lots of people in government that think that kind of punishment makes sense, and so here we are. And who knows, from soda tax, who knows where we'll go from? Some countries are bringing in sugar taxes more broadly. There's a famous fat tax in Denmark that didn't turn out very well. They eventually had to get rid of it.
Oh boy!
But yeah, there's certainly a public health urge out there to. That certain people know better than everyone else, and so they need to change the prices on things so that they eat the way they're supposed to eat.
Now, you mentioned something interesting, and I'm sorry I hadn't caught that in the book, that the UK actually taxes it at the manufacturer level. But the end result, I assume, is the same, whether it's at the point of purchase, whether it's at the consumer end that they're paying the extra tax, or whether it's just passed on to the customer via manufacturer.
Well, the UK example is actually quite interesting because it was meant not so much as a way to raise money, but as a way to kind of push manufacturers into reducing the amount of soda, because there's certain levels. You pay this much tax if there's this much soda in your drink. Okay. You pay a higher tax if there's more sugar. And it appears to have had some impact on manufacturers. They've lowered the amount of sugar. And so that's to the benefit.
Okay.
Most consumers don't seem to have noticed. The UK thing is criticizable on other levels. So when they brought this tax in, they said that they were going to spend every penny of it on public health measures, and they had a bunch of the things like school lunch programs or breakfast programs. But then as time goes on, it gets very hard for governments to actually abide by those. And when they find themselves short on money, they say, well, there's this soda tax money just sitting there. And so they've abandoned that promise that all the money will be spent on public health measures. And that speaks to kind of, what we were talking about at the beginning. Why are these measures really brought in the first place? And you can't get away from the fact that they're a very reliable source of income, and governments all over the world find themselves short on money.
Yes.
And just to go back to Mexico, they keep raising the rate. It's such a successful tax for them. The very first year, they made like a third more than they were expecting to make. Because why? Because people didn't stop drinking soda
So
the way they
why
expected them
cut
to.
the rate so low? Might as well jack it up.